All right, folks, hold on to your hats because things are about to get interesting. We've got some potentially life-changing news coming your way. Word on the street is that President Trump is about to drop a cool $2,600 into the bank accounts of every SSI, SSDI recipient and senior citizen. That's right, a boosted check is supposedly arriving tomorrow, direct deposited and ready to spend. Imagine waking up to find that extra cash just sitting there, waiting for you. Now, who wouldn't love a little extra cash in their pocket? Especially those who rely on these crucial benefits. It could mean the difference between scraping by and living a bit more comfortably. This news has spread like wildfire, with folks buzzing about how they'll spend their windfall. Conversations are happening everywhere, from coffee shops to online forums. A new pair of orthopedic shoes, maybe even a long-awaited vacation, a month's worth of prescription refills. The possibilities seem endless. For many, this money could be a lifeline. But before you start planning that celebratory early bird special, we need to pump the brakes a little. It's important to stay grounded and not get carried away just yet. Because, here's the thing, and this is important, there are conflicting reports swirling around this supposed financial blessing. Not everything is as clear-cut as it seems. Some say it's a done deal, while others are singing a different tune. The information out there is mixed and it's causing quite a bit of confusion. And that, my friends, is why we need to talk about the importance of verification. Before you make any plans, make sure to double-check the facts. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Now, the idea of another round of stimulus checks might sound a tad far-fetched to some, and frankly, they wouldn't be wrong to think so. See, our economy isn't exactly on life support at the moment. In fact, it's doing relatively well. The GDP is growing, inflation is playing nice, for now at least, the unemployment rate is low, and people are still out there spending money. Consumer confidence is relatively high, and businesses are seeing steady foot traffic. Traditionally, stimulus checks are like economic defibrillators, used in emergencies to jolt a struggling economy back to life. We saw this firsthand during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the economy went into a medically induced coma. Trump, during his first term, signed not one but two stimulus bills to keep things afloat. These measures were crucial at the time, providing a lifeline to millions of Americans. But the current situation, well, it's a different beast altogether. The economic climate has shifted significantly since then. Experts are saying that another round of stimulus checks is about as likely as finding a unicorn riding a roller coaster on Wall Street. The idea is almost laughable given the current economic indicators. There's no legislation in the works, no serious discussions happening in Congress about another round of checks, and the IRS isn't going to be sending out checks willy-nilly without a big fat order from Congress. The bureaucratic machinery simply doesn't work that way. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us in a state of cautious optimism, but also with a need for vigilance. With a healthy dose of skepticism and a thirst for reliable information. Staying informed and critically evaluating the news is more important than ever. Let's take a closer look at the economic playing field, shall we? The economy is like a giant complex machine with a million moving parts. Right now, those parts are, for the most part, humming along. Businesses are hiring, wages are slowly increasing, and people are feeling cautiously optimistic. But, and there's always a but, there are storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Inflation, while currently under control, has a nasty habit of rearing its ugly head. The Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates to keep it in check, but that can also slow down economic growth. It's a delicate balancing act, and one wrong move could send us tumbling. So, while the economy might seem rosy at first glance, there are underlying vulnerabilities that can't be ignored. This is not to say that a recession is imminent, but it's a good reminder that economic conditions can change quickly. And that brings us to another wrinkle in this whole boosted check saga, Trump's love affair with tariffs. Now let's rewind the clock back to the year 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic had the world in its grip, and the global economy was in freefall. Businesses shuttered, millions lost their jobs, and the stock market resembled a roller coaster designed by a sadist. Enter Donald J. Trump, wielding his trusty pen and a stack of stimulus checks. He signed two massive relief packages, pumping trillions of dollars into the economy. These checks, while not a perfect solution, provided a much-needed lifeline to struggling families and businesses. But here's the kicker. Those stimulus checks were a response to an unprecedented economic crisis. The situation today is vastly different. The economy, while not firing on all cylinders, is far from the brink of collapse. So the rationale for another round of stimulus checks simply isn't there, at least not yet. Section 5. Trump's Tariff Tightrope. Now let's talk tariffs, shall we? Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported goods, and they have been a cornerstone of President Trump's economic policy. President Trump has never been shy about his love for tariffs. He often touts them as a tool to level the playing field for American businesses. He sees them as a way to protect American jobs and industries from what he calls unfair foreign competition. This protectionist stance aims to boost domestic manufacturing, but economists, well, they tend to view tariffs with a bit more skepticism. They argue that tariffs can lead to higher prices for consumers and strained international relations. Trump has announced plans to slap hefty tariffs on goods from Mexico, Canada, and his old nemesis China. These countries are some of the largest trading partners of the United States. We're talking 10 to 20% on most imports and a whopping 60% or more on Chinese goods. These tariffs are intended to pressure these countries into trade concessions. He's even threatened retaliatory tariffs if other countries dare to raise their tariffs on American exports. This tit-for-tat approach has led to fears of a full-blown trade war. It's a high-stakes game of economic chicken, and the consequences could be significant. Businesses and consumers alike are caught in the crossfire. See, tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods. When these taxes are imposed, the cost is often passed down the supply chain. And guess who ends up paying those taxes? That's right, consumers like you and me. The increased costs can lead to higher prices on everyday items. That's right, consumers like you and me. We'll be shelling out more for everything from clothes and toys to cars and electronics. The impact on household budgets can be substantial. We'll be shelling out more for everything from clothes and toys to cars and electronics. And that, my friends, brings us to the potential contradiction at the heart of this whole thing. While tariffs aim to protect American jobs, they can also lead to higher costs for American consumers. It's a delicate balance, and the stakes are incredibly high. Section 6. The price tag of protectionism. Trump's tariff plans are like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they could generate a lot of revenue for the government. We're talking trillions of dollars over the next decade. That's a lot of zeros. Even for a government used to spending money like it's going out of style. But here's the other edge of that sword. Those tariffs are going to hit consumers right in the wallets. Experts predict that the average household could see their expenses increase by anywhere from $1,700 to $2,350 per year. That's not chump change, folks. We're talking about higher prices for everyday essentials like food, clothing, and gas. And let's not forget about the impact on businesses. Many companies rely on imported goods, and those higher costs will inevitably be passed down to consumers. It's a recipe for inflation, and that's something the Federal Reserve is already struggling to keep in check. Section 7. A contradiction in policies? So, let's connect the dots, shall we? On one hand, we have the promise of a $2,600 boosted check landing in our bank accounts. On the other hand, we have the looming threat of tariffs that could cost us thousands of dollars in the long run. Something doesn't quite add up, does it? It's like giving someone a small fish, while simultaneously setting their house on fire. Sure, that fish might provide a temporary reprieve from hunger, but it's not going to do much good when you're homeless and living on the streets. The economic impact of these tariffs, particularly the increased cost of living, could very well negate any benefit of a one-time payment. It's a classic case of short-term gain for long-term pain, and it highlights the importance of looking beyond the surface and considering the broader economic consequences of policies like these. Section 8. Navigating the Sea of Information. In this age of instant information and rampant misinformation, it's more important than ever to be discerning consumers of news. When you hear about something as significant as a $2,600 check, especially from unofficial sources, your first instinct should be skepticism, followed by a healthy dose of verification. Don't just take someone's word for it, no matter how convincing they may sound. Check official government websites, reputable news outlets, and fact-checking organizations. Look for evidence, not just opinions. And if something sounds too good to be true, well, it probably is. Remember, knowledge is power. And in today's world, having accurate information can mean the difference between making informed decisions and falling prey to scams, misinformation, and political spin. So stay vigilant, stay informed, and most importantly, stay skeptical. That's all the time we have for tonight. Good night, and good luck out there.